The Grand Hunting War, which had shaken the entire northern domain, finally came to an end after several months. However, when it did, the outcome sent shockwaves across the entire northern domain. The Lord of the Divine Pavilion has fallen. When this news spread, the entire northern domain seemed to be struck speechless. All the forces were stunned, unable to believe that such a powerful figure, one of the strongest in the northern domain, had perished just like that. Though every grand hunting war results in the downfall of some top forces, no one had expected that this time the force to be destroyed would be the most powerful one in the northern domain, the Divine Pavilion. Thus, the northern domain was rocked, and soon after, turmoil began to spread. Everyone understood that once the Divine Pavilion lost its leader, it would inevitably decline. Their current strength was no longer enough to maintain such a vast empire, and this immense legacy would attract many eager wolves. However, to everyone's surprise, the contest for the Divine Pavilion's territory did not erupt into the usual chaotic bloodbath. Instead, everything quietly fell into place, with the territories being peacefully divided. Upon further observation, the various outside forces were shocked to discover that nearly half of the Divine Pavilion's land had been taken over by the Great Luo Heaven Domain at this point. The forces in the northern domain finally understood who the true winner of the Grand Hunting War was, and at this very moment, news about Mandala stepping into the realm of Half-Step Upper Earth Supreme, along with many hidden events that transpired during the Grand Hunting War, spread throughout the entire northern domain. Half-Step Upper Earth Supreme. When the various forces heard this news, they couldn't help but gasp in disbelief. They all knew what this meant. The Great Luo Heaven Domain's power had now surpassed that of all the other top forces. From now on, the era of multiple equally powerful forces in the northern domain would end. The Great Luo Heaven Domain would rise to become the most powerful force. With the situation shifting in this way, the various forces began to realize how they should now approach the most powerful force in the northern domain, the Great Luo Heaven Domain. With the right humility and respect, from now on, the Great Luo Heaven Domain would undoubtedly become the hidden overlord of the northern domain, and no one would dare to provoke it easily. The reputation of the Great Luo Heaven Domain grew rapidly in the northern domain. Mu Chen's name began to spread unconsciously. According to the rumors, if it weren't for Mu Chen's immense efforts, the outcome of the Grand Hunting War might have been completely different. Moreover, in the Grand Hunting War, Mu Chen had risen to become a battle formation master, leading the forces of the Great Luo Heaven Domain to victory, even causing one of the pavilion masters of the Divine Pavilion to be unable to do anything against him. Figures like Fong Yi of the Divine Pavilion and the Netherworld Prince of the Netherworld Palace, once the top young talents, had all been reduced to mere background characters in this Grand Hunting War, overshadowed by Mu Chen as the Great Luo Heaven Domain solidified its position as the strongest force in the northern domain. Mu Chen easily ascended to the top of the Dragon and Phoenix record, replacing Fong Yi as the true master of the record. He became the unrivaled leader among the young generation in the northern domain. With his extraordinary achievements, no one in the northern domain dared to question his status as the top figure among the younger generation. While the entire northern domain was in turmoil due to the fall of the Divine Pavilion, the Great Luo Heaven Domain was also like a boiling pot of oil, never settling down since the day the Grand Hunting War ended. They had to absorb nearly half of the Divine Pavilion's territory. Such a massive domain, even with the strength of the Great Luo Heaven Domain, would be difficult to fully absorb in a short time. Moreover, within the Divine Pavilion's territory, some forces were unwilling to submit, and secretly employed various methods to create chaos, further complicating the Great Luo Heaven Domain's efforts to consolidate control. However, these problems were quickly dealt with when the three sovereigns personally led their troops to eliminate the forces causing trouble. With their efforts, the disturbances were quickly put to an end. After all, these forces had no true loyalty to the Divine Pavilion. They were simply concerned that once the Great Luo Heaven Domain took control, their own interests would be affected. When the Great Luo Heaven Domain began to display its bloody methods, they finally realized that the situation had reached a scale beyond their ability to resist. The only thing they could do was to honestly submit. Otherwise, there would be no place for them to hide in the northern domain. As time passed, the prestige of the Great Luo Heaven Domain grew increasingly formidable, and more forces flocked to its side, greatly increasing the available strength of the Great Luo Heaven Domain compared to the past. In just under a month, the Great Luo Heaven Domain gradually absorbed half of the Divine Hall's territory. Although there were occasional disturbances, they gradually leaned toward resolution. However, the expansion of the Great Luo Heaven Domain into half of the Divine Hall's domain undoubtedly made it bulkier. Fortunately, Mandala and the three sovereigns remained relatively rational. Despite the ever-growing number of powerful forces joining their ranks, they did not quickly grant high positions. Instead, they selected key positions from the old core members of the Great Luo Heaven Domain to prevent internal issues from hindering their progress. It must be said that once the Great Luo Heaven Domain successfully navigates this stage and fully integrates its vast territory and the powerful forces under its control, its strength will undoubtedly dominate the entire northern domain. At that time, the Great Luo Heaven Domain will undoubtedly become the true overlord of the northern domain. Great Luo Heaven Domain, Great Luo Heaven, 9 Nether Palace. With the expansion of the Great Luo Heaven Domain, the 9 Nether Palace has also grown more magnificent than ever, and the number of powerful experts within the palace has greatly increased. In the process of the Great Luo Heaven Domain's expansion, the 9 Nether Palace has clearly benefited the most among the various kings, with its cities increasing from about 100 to over 600. This impressive gain has made the 9 Nether Palace the largest in scale among the kings, even surpassing the forces of powerful figures like the Xun'er king. However, no one dared to voice much dissatisfaction regarding Mandala's blessings to the 9 Nether Palace. After all, everyone knew that the Great Luo Heaven Domain's victory in the Grand Hunting War was largely thanks to Mu Chen, and they could not compare to that. What's more, in the end, Mu Chen even handed over the Starry Sky Demon Suppressing Tower to Mandala. So, even though they were envious of the 9 Nether Palace's expansion, there was little complaint, as it was well understood that this was all rightfully earned by the 9 Nether Palace, or more precisely, by Mu Chen. The rapid increase in cities under their control was a cause for celebration within the 9 Nether Palace. However, this also came with the challenge of managing them. Fortunately, with the help of Tang Bing, the Grand Steward of the 9 Nether Palace, and the strong forces that had joined over time, after about a month of reorganizing, the 9 Nether Palace gradually took full control of these 600 cities. With over 600 cities under their control, the 9 Nether Palace's annual offerings alone would likely reach tens of thousands of supreme spiritual liquid, an amount far surpassing the previous meager situation. Deep within the 9 Nether Palace, despite its expanded size, this area remained a forbidden zone, accessible only to a select few. At this moment, atop a palace's rooftop deep inside the 9 Nether Palace, Mu Chen stood with his hands clasped behind his back, gazing out at the outer perimeter of the palace. Streams of light flew by, indicating that the 9 Nether Palace was still extremely busy. While the 9 Nether Palace absorbed countless cities, Mu Chen didn't remain idle. After all, not all cities would peacefully submit, so Mu Chen had to lead the 9 Nether Guard to visit them personally and eliminate all obstacles. After nearly a month of this effort, even after experiencing the brutal conflicts of the Grand Hunting War, Mu Chen was beginning to feel the toll. However, his efforts had finally stabilized the 9 Nether Palace's position, and as long as there were no setbacks, the palace's expansion was imminent. It's really a different time now. Mu Chen stood at the rooftop, gazing at the now flourishing 9 Nether Palace, sighing with emotion. When he first arrived in the Great Luo Heaven Domain 2 years ago, the 9 Nether Palace was almost forced to disband. Who could have imagined that, just 2 years later, the 9 Nether Palace would grow to this extent? Yes, but at least half of this credit belongs to you. A light chuckle rang out from behind Mu Chen at that moment. He wasn't surprised, turning his head to see the slender and graceful figure of 9 Nether standing behind him, smiling warmly. She took a step forward, standing beside Mu Chen, and stared into the distance, her voice slightly dazed as she murmured, "I never expected that in just these 2 short years, you've grown so much." 2 years ago, Mu Chen had just arrived in the great Luo heaven domain. Back then, he hadn't even condensed his supreme Dharmakaya. But now, he had already become the #1 among the younger generation of the northern domain. This kind of progress was truly astonishing. It's all thanks to you, Nine Nether, for guiding me here. Mu Chen smiled slightly. Had it not been for Nine Nether leading him to the great Luo heaven domain, he would probably still be wandering aimlessly through the great thousand worlds with no clear direction. Hearing this, Nine Nether merely smiled faintly. Mu Chen, however, noticed that her smile seemed somewhat forced. He furrowed his brows slightly and asked in a low voice, "What's wrong?" Nine Nether hesitated for a moment before letting out a helpless sigh. "I received a message from my clan. 5 days from now, Elder Tian K will come to the great Luo heaven domain to take me back to the clan." Upon hearing this, Mu Chen's pupils immediately constricted. So, the Nine Nether Sparrow clan was finally coming. In the blink of an eye, 5 days passed. When the 5th day arrived, members of the Nine Nether Sparrow clan indeed arrived at the great Luo heaven as promised. Great Luo Heaven Reception Hall. The Nine Nether Sparrow clan was one of the oldest and most influential spirit beast clans in the Great Thousand Worlds. So, when they arrived in the Great Luo Heaven domain, even Mandala showed them great respect. She temporarily set aside her cultivation and personally came forward to greet them. In front of the hall, Mandala stood with her hands behind her back, with the 3 sovereigns and Mu Chen standing behind her. Nine Nether, however, seemed somewhat distracted. Mu Chen could tell that she was still worried, but there was little to say now. It was better to wait for the Nine Nether Sparrow clan to arrive and see their attitude toward this matter. "Don't worry. While the Nine Nether Sparrow clan is strong, our great Luo heaven domain isn't some soft target. They won't be allowed to act recklessly under my watch." Mandala glanced at Mu Chen and Nine Nether before speaking. With her keen perception, Mandala knew exactly what Nine Nether was worried about. She and Mu Chen shared a bloodline connection, a bond that was as strong as life and death, that if one perished, the other would likely follow. Generally, such bloodline connections weren't rare among spirit beast clans, but they were usually limited to high-ranking spirit beasts. This way, both parties could benefit. However, in Mu Chen's case, he clearly didn't belong to one of those high bloodline spirit beasts. Moreover, these special-blooded spirit beast clans typically look down on humans. In normal circumstances, a spirit beast of the same rank would usually be stronger than a human, possessing various innate talents and a naturally stronger physique that to them. Most humans were frail, easily dying before becoming truly powerful. Thus, forming a bloodline connection with a human was strongly resisted, as they saw it as nothing but a pollution of their pure bloodline with no benefit to them. In some conservative spirit beast clans, if a spirit beast formed a bloodline connection with a human, they would be treated as traitors, their bloodline drained until they died. Because of all this, Nine Nether had been constantly worried. She wasn't concerned about what might happen to her. Her father was the current leader of the Nine Nether Sparrow clan, and she was highly respected for her outstanding talent, so no one dared to harm her in the clan. But she was worried about what the Nine Nether Sparrow clan would do once they found out about her connection with Mu Chen. However, hearing Mandala's assurance, she felt a little more at ease. She nodded gratefully toward her. Just as she was about to speak, her expression suddenly stiffened. Looking up, she saw a streak of light flashing across the distant sky. Within a few breaths, it transformed into a massive purple bird surrounded by lightning, with powerful winds howling around it. The purple giant bird hovered above the hall, and then several figures descended from the sky, landing directly on the open ground in front of Mandala and the others. "Hee, I am Tian K, elder of the Nine Nether Sparrow clan. I hope the lord of the great Luo domain does not take offense at my intrusion today." As several beams of light appeared, an old, laughing voice echoed. When the laughter spread, an overwhelming spiritual pressure surged, instantly enveloping the entire area, causing the space to feel suffocating. As the light gradually faded, several figures appeared before the reception hall. Leading them was an elderly man dressed in a blue robe, on which a skylark pattern shimmered. With every movement, he exuded a powerful, oppressive aura. This immense spiritual pressure came from him. Behind the elderly man were several figures. with the most eye-catching being a tall young man in a blue robe. His appearance was handsome, with sword-like eyebrows, thin lips, and eyes sharp as a drawn sword, making him impossible to ignore. As Mandala stood behind, the three sovereigns sensed the overwhelming spiritual pressure, their brows furrowed. The actions of the newcomers seemed a bit domineering. Were they testing the limits of the great Luo heaven domain? It seemed like a deliberate show of force before showing any respect. It looked like today's matter would not be simple. It seems the elder of the 9 Nether Sparrow clan, Tian Ke, has arrived. We, of the great Luo domain, will naturally make every effort to accommodate such a distinguished guest. While the three sovereigns furrowed their brows, Mandala merely smiled lightly. Without moving, her words seemed to ripple through the air, releasing a calming aura that instantly neutralized the overwhelming pressure from the front. The once oppressive atmosphere now returned to tranquility. This light display of control immediately caused the elderly man in blue to stiffen. His gaze locked onto Mandala. After a moment, he spoke with a solemn tone. I didn't expect the Lord of the great Luo domain to have already reached the level of Upper Earth Supreme. It seems it won't be long before you step into that realm entirely. Truly, congratulations. The Tian Ke elder's current strength was at the Lower Earth Supreme level, a respected position within the 9 Nether Sparrow clan. Based on his assessment, the domain lord of the great Luo heaven should be on the same level. If a disagreement arose and a fight ensued, he believed he could rely on the divine beast's form to gain the upper hand. However, Mandala's strength had clearly surpassed his expectations. An Upper Earth Supreme was considered one of the highest levels even among the 9 Nether Sparrow clan. He hadn't expected a regional power like the Great Luo domain to have such a formidable individual. Mandala smiled gently. Elder Tian Ke, you flatter me. She was, of course, aware of the arrogance of these spirit beast clans. And from the earlier display, it was clear that the elder didn't come with good intentions. If she hadn't made a breakthrough during the Grand Hunting War, it was likely that Tian Ke would not have been so polite. Elder Tian Ke chuckled warmly, and then turned his gaze toward the figures behind him. With a beaming smile, he called, Little 9 Nether, I've traveled a long way to bring you out. You're not planning to hide, are you? At the back, 9 Nether, seeing Tian Ke's gaze, could only walk out reluctantly. As 9 Nether appeared. The elder's ancient eyes seemed to glow with intensity. He examined her from head to toe, and in the next moment, a surprised smile spread across his weathered face. As expected, you are the 9 Nether Soul Sparrow. You've truly awakened that bloodline. You truly are the best of our clan's bloodline in thousands of years. Mu Chen, witnessing this, couldn't help but ask the Heavenly Vulture Emperor, is it difficult for someone from the 9 Nether Sparrow clan to awaken the 9 Nether Soul Sparrow? From Tian Ke's words, it seemed there were many bloodlines that could awaken in the 9 Nether Sparrow clan. The 9 Nether Sparrow is a spirit beast clan, but its evolved forms can give rise to different branches, such as the 9 Nether Flame Sparrow, 9 Nether Frost Sparrow, and so on. The 9 Nether Soul Sparrow, however, is the rarest of these branches because its evolution signifies the presence of the undying bird bloodline. If it encounters the right opportunities, it could eventually evolve into the undying bird, a true super divine beast, and one of the top-tier beings among them. The Heavenly Vulture Emperor laughed lightly. As far as I know, in all these years, 9 Nether is the only one from the 9 Nether Sparrow clan who has ever evolved into the 9 Nether Soul Sparrow. Mu Chen couldn't help but click his tongue in surprise. He had always known that 9 Nether was quite talented, but he hadn't expected her to be so rare and exceptional within the 9 Nether Sparrow clan. While Mu Chen and the Heavenly Vulture Emperor whispered to each other, 9 Nether merely forced a smile at Elder Tian Ke and said, Thank you, Elder, for coming to receive me. Now that we're all here, let's prepare to return to the clan. Just as her words fell, a handsome young man standing behind Elder Tian Ke smiled slightly and said, Your Highness 9 Nether, there's no rush to return. We actually have another matter to attend to on this trip. Who are you? 9 Nether's voice turned cold. I am Liu Qing, an enforcer of our clan's law enforcement hall, the young man replied with a smile. Liu Qing. 9 Nether's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. The name sounded familiar. Back when she left the 9 Nether Sparrow clan, He had been one of the most outstanding talents among the younger generation. She hadn't expected that he had now become an enforcer of the law enforcement hall. His rise in status was rather swift. Heh, little nine Nether, don't make things difficult for Liu Qing. Elder Tian Ke chuckled. But then, his previously cloudy eyes sharpened like blades as he continued. You are the most exceptional bloodline holder our clan has seen in 1,000 years. Your life tablet has always been kept in the ancestral temple. However, not long ago, we discovered that it had become slightly tainted. That is a sign of bloodline contamination. That is why I have come, to get to the bottom of this. Nine Nether's delicate face paled slightly as she replied. That's because I suffered severe injuries in the past. The traces you speak of will naturally fade over time. Elder Tian Ke, however, shook his head and said calmly, From the moment I laid eyes on you, I knew that you had formed a bloodline bond with someone that there's no need to hide it. And you can rest assured, if anyone dared to force a bloodline bond upon you, our 9 Nether Sparrow clan would stop at nothing to annihilate them. So all you need to do is tell me who the bloodline bond is with. His final words were filled with an undeniable killing intent that spread ominously through the air. 9 Nether clenched her silver teeth tightly, her slender hands balling into fists, but she remained silent. Elder Tian Ke glanced at her, his brows furrowing. Even if you refuse to speak, I can sense it myself. Here, within this place, there aren't many who carry the scent of our 9 Nether Sparrow clan's bloodline. As his words fell, his voice erupted like thunder, shaking the heavens. His gaze, sharp as a blade cutting through the sky, locked onto Mu Chen standing in the background. Young one, tell me, am I correct? Elder Tian Ke's thunderous voice resounded across the sky, his eyes like unsheathed swords, tearing through space as they fixated on Mu Chen. Under that piercing gaze, Mu Chen instantly felt an overwhelming pressure crash down upon him. The sharp intensity of the stare seemed to pierce straight through his chest, sending his blood surging violently within him. A faint taste of iron rose in his throat, but he forcefully swallowed it down. He then lifted his head, meeting Elder Tian Ke's gaze without a hint of retreat. A sharp glint flickered in his eyes, his resolve unyielding. Though he was not as powerful as Elder Tian Ke, his will was just as indomitable. Humph. Seeing that this mere 5th grade supreme did not kneel or submit, but instead dared to meet his gaze head-on, Elder Tian Ke let out a cold snort. Just as he was about to take a step forward to unleash an even greater pressure and force Mu Chen into submission. In my great Luo heaven domain, do you really think you can act so recklessly? Before Elder Tian Ke could move, a voice laced with a tinge of anger rang out. At that moment, Elder Tian Ke suddenly felt a terrifying pressure descend upon him, locking him in place. He realized that even taking another step forward would provoke a direct confrontation. And if that happened, though he could retreat intact, he would undoubtedly end up in an extremely embarrassing state. No matter what, Mandala was currently at the half-step Upper Earth Supreme level. Compared to his own Lower Earth Supreme strength, she was undoubtedly far more formidable. In a one-on-one fight, he had little chance of victory. Elder Tian Ke's expression shifted repeatedly before, at last, his billowing robes settled, and the terrifying aura emanating from him gradually receded. With the pressure lifted, Elder Tian Ke turned his cold, furious gaze toward Mandala. Domain Master of Great Luo Heaven, this matter is of utmost importance to the 9 Nether Sparrow clan. I implore you, for the sake of our clan, to hand this person over. If you do, our 9 Nether Sparrow clan will forever be in your debt. Mandala looked at Elder Tian Ke, her expression indifferent as she replied. That is out of the question. Mu Chen has rendered great service to Great Luo Heaven domain. Anyone who wishes to take him away here would be making an enemy of me and my domain. Although her tone was calm, there was a resolute and decisive intent in her words that immediately caused Elder Tian Ke's pupils to contract. Clearly, he hadn't expected that the matter would provoke such a strong backlash from the Mandala. Great Luo Domain Master, are you really willing to go to war with my 9 Nether Sparrow clan over a mere 5th grade supreme? Elder Tian Ke said sharply. Though the Great Luo Heaven domain was unexpectedly powerful, it was, after all, a force with shallow foundations compared to their ancient spirit beast clans. So if a clash were to occur, it would be a catastrophic disaster for the Great Luo domain. If my Great Luo domain cannot even protect those who have contributed greatly, what face do we have to stand firm in the Northern domain? It would be better to disband it early, Mandala said with a cold laugh. Moreover, although your 9 Nether Sparrow clan has a long history, if you truly intend to devour my Great Luo domain, you may need to prepare for the fall of several Earth Supremes. Among them, perhaps even you, Elder Tian Ke. At this point, Mandala's eyes gleamed with killing intent. Her words, filled with overwhelming force, made Elder Tian Ke's face turn ashen with anger. However, amidst his rage, he couldn't help but feel a tinge of fear to him. The Great Luo domain master seemed like a madman. Completely unpredictable. One careless word from her could result in mutual destruction, a situation where both sides would perish. Although their 9 Nether Sparrow clan's foundation might be stronger than the Great Luo domains, they simply couldn't afford the loss of several Earth Supremes. The number of such high-level experts in their clan was few and far between, and the loss of even one would be a severe blow. Elder Tian Ke. As Elder Tian Ke's expression shifted between dark and light, and a terrifying aura began to rise around him, 9 Nether spoke angrily. I was severely injured in the past. If I hadn't met Mu Chen, I would have already turned to ash. He can be considered a benefactor of my 9 Nether Sparrow clan. Are you now planning to repay kindness with enmity? Elder Tian Ke said in a deep voice. 9 Nether, I understand your loyalty, but even when repaying kindness, there are different ways to do it. You are the purest bloodline of our 9 Nether Sparrow clan in 1,000 years. If you're to form a bloodline bond, it should be with a divine beast of equally high bloodline. But this boy is ordinary. How could he handle such a blessing? It would only harm him. Ordinary, Mandala scoffed. Right now, Mu Chen ranks first on the Dragon Phoenix record of the Northern Domain. Among the younger generation in the Northern Domain, no one can surpass him. Elder Tian Ke and Liu Qing behind him were momentarily stunned, and a hint of surprise appeared in their eyes. They hadn't expected Mu Chen to have such achievements. The Northern Domain is vast, but I didn't expect the younger generation to be so incompetent. A 5th grade Supreme. If he were in our clan's younger generation, he would barely be considered passable as for competing for the top. It's laughable. Elder Tian Ke quickly regained his composure and sneered disdainfully, clearly questioning the value of the Northern Domain's so-called Dragon Phoenix record. Mu Chen, hearing Elder Tian Ke's dismissive words, remained unangered that he merely smiled, and said, I admit that my ranking on the Northern Domain's Dragon Phoenix record is a stroke of luck. However, as for whether I truly deserve it, Elder can send someone to test it. Faced with Elder Tian Ke's aggressive tone, Mu Chen didn't shrink behind Mandala's protection. He understood that once Mandala clashed with the 9 Nether Sparrow clan, immense pressure would follow, so he spoke to help share that burden. However, Mu Chen was not arrogant enough to directly challenge Elder Tian Quebec. The latter was an Earth Supreme level expert, and eliminating him would be a mere flick of the wrist. So, Mu Chen only suggested that someone be sent to test him. At this point, if Elder Tian Ke truly wanted to test his strength, the only person who could do so was Liu Qing, the young man behind him. Liu Qing was no ordinary figure. Mu Chen speculated that his power should be on par with 9 Nether. But even if they were to fight, Mu Chen wasn't sure if Liu Qing would be able to claim a lightning-fast victory. Upon hearing Mu Chen's words, Elder Tian Ke's eyes flickered, and then he sneered. You little brat are quite slippery. If I truly decide to make a move, no one can save you. But since you have the guts to step forward, I'll see just what you're capable of today. Liu Qing. Here, the handsome young man in green, with sharp eyes, responded in a deep voice. Within 10 exchanges, capture him. After speaking, Elder Tian Ke's gaze shifted toward Mandala and the 3 sovereigns. I trust you won't interfere in this little sparring match between the young ones, will you? Once he confirmed that this kid was an ordinary person, he would send the news back to the clan, which would inevitably trigger the wrath of the elders. The 9 Nether Sparrow clan's 1,000-year genius could not be tainted by such a weak human. When that time came, if the noise got too big, let's see if the Great Luo Heaven Domain would still dare to act recklessly. Mandala and the 3 sovereigns furrowed their brows, but said nothing further. After all, Elder Tian Ke represented the 9 Nether Sparrow clan, so they couldn't openly oppose him. Since he wanted Liu Qing to take action, they decided to let him do so. Mandala glanced at Liu Qing that he was indeed no ordinary person. It seemed that in the younger generation of the 9 Nether Sparrow clan, he was a standout. However, the 9 Nether Sparrow clan was a little too arrogant to capture Mu Chen in 10 moves. At the thought of this, Mandala couldn't help but smile coldly. Over the years, anyone who underestimated Mu Chen never ended up well. The great Luo domain master knows what's best, Elder Tian Ke said when he saw Mandala's consent, his face breaking into a satisfied smile. He then nodded slightly at Liu Qing behind him. Liu Qing nodded back, then slowly began to walk forward. However, as soon as he moved, 9 Nether stood in front of him, her frosty face staring coldly at Liu Qing. "Don't worry, Your Highness 9 Nether, I won't take his life, just teach him a lesson," Liu Qing said with a smile, facing 9 Nether's icy gaze. "9 Nether, don't interfere with this. If this kid needs your protection, then he's too useless. Even if this matter reaches your father, he will never allow you to cause trouble." Elder Tian Ke's voice grew heavy from the side. 9 Nether shot Liu Qing a cold glance, then sneered, "I just don't want you to embarrass yourself later." Liu Qing's eyes narrowed slightly, and he gave a non-committal smile, saying nothing more. He simply stepped forward, bypassing 9 Nether and slowly walking toward Mu Chen. As he walked, everyone could feel a scorching and violent spiritual energy wave gathering around him like a volcano ready to erupt. His sharp eyes became even more piercing, and his spiritual power billowed, causing his clothes to flutter. Faintly, a clear, melodic chanting sound seemed to emanate. An overwhelming aura began to slowly emanate from his body. The 3 sovereigns noticed Liu Qing's imposing presence, their eyes narrowing. Judging by this momentum, Liu Qing's strength was such that even among the kings of the great Luo heaven domain, only the Xun'er king could suppress him. It seemed the younger generation of the 9 Nether Sparrow clan really had some skills. No wonder Elder Tian Ke was so proud. Under everyone's gaze, Liu Qing walked 10 paces in front of Mu Chen and then stopped. He looked at Mu Chen with a detached expression and said calmly, "I am only here to help you understand that a person should know their own limitations." However, in response to his words, Mu Chen remained unfazed, his face calm. He raised one hand, curling his fingers slightly. "Mu Chen of the great Luo heaven domain, I ask for your guidance." In the sky above, 2 massive figures stood tall. The terrifying spiritual energy swept out like a storm, directly stirring up wild winds across the land. The clouds in the sky were torn apart in an instant. Though this area had already been sealed off by Mandala, it was still within the great Luo heaven domain. When such an incredible burst of spiritual energy erupted, the surrounding area quickly became agitated. From the distance, countless flashes of light surged toward them, eventually floating in the air, watching the confrontation below. They did not rush into the area carelessly, as they saw Mandala present. Since the domain master was here, they assumed this battle was within her permission. Some powerful individuals who had the responsibility of guarding quietly sighed in relief, then turned their attention to the standoff. A look of astonishment appeared in their eyes. "Isn't that Mu King? Someone is fighting him. Who is that? I've never seen him before, but that spiritual pressure is incredible." With this kind of spiritual pressure, he must have reached the peak of the 6th grade supreme. Among the kings, only the Xun'er king could outmatch him. Who exactly is this person? Whispers erupted in the air. Ever since the conclusion of the Grand Hunting War, Mu Chen's reputation in the northern domain had soared, and he had firmly established himself as the top young figure in the region. When these powerful experts from the great Luo heaven domain saw someone daring to face off against the peak of Mu Chen's rising power, they were utterly astonished. "I've heard that recently, the 9 Nether Sparrow clan will send someone to welcome the 9 Nether King back to their tribe. If I'm not mistaken, this young man must be a talented figure from the 9 Nether Sparrow clan," one of the higher-ups from the great Luo heaven domain remarked, knowing more about the situation. "Indeed, the 9 Nether Sparrow clan is formidable. This person before us is already at the peak of the 6th grade supreme. Such power would certainly make any faction in the northern domain take notice, another person exclaimed. This individual is no ordinary opponent. I wonder if Mu King can stand up to him. Someone else murmured with concern. Despite Mu Chen's recent meteoric rise in the northern domain, his personal strength was still only at the 5th grade supreme. Of course, if he could utilize his skills as a battle formation master to activate his battle will, the 9 Nether clan's genius would probably be overwhelmed within 5 moves. However, in this particular confrontation, Mu Chen clearly couldn't use his battle will. If an ordinary person tried to challenge a peak 6th grade supreme with only 5th grade supreme strength, it would likely be met with ridicule. But when it came to Mu Chen, the crowd couldn't help but wonder about his chances of victory, since he had pulled off similar feats in the past. Thus, the outcome of this battle was still uncertain in the eyes of the spectators. As Mu Chen and Liu Qing stood locked in their standoff, their focus was unbroken by the gazes of the powerful experts from the great Luo Heaven domain. Their eyes were fixed on each other, a cold aura flickering in their gazes as their spiritual energy surged like a roaring storm around them. Liu Qing stood upon the 9 Nether flame Sparrow, his hands slowly tightening around the crimson long spear. In the next moment, a fiery red glow erupted in his eyes, and with a forceful stamp of his foot, chi, the massive 9 Nether flame Sparrow beneath him let out a sky-shaking cry. Its sharp beak opened wide, and a vast sea of fire, red as blood, spread out, engulfing the heavens in an instant. 9 Nether flame Sparrow art, crimson, sea, burning heaven. Liu Qing aimed his crimson spear at Mu Chen, and the fiery red sea of fire immediately surged forward. The space around it twisted, causing the onlookers in the distance to see their vision blur. Whoosh! The sea of fire swept forward and quickly engulfed Mu Chen's great sun indestructible body. Yet, despite the roaring flames, Mu Chen remained calm, standing atop his great sun indestructible body, which began to glow with golden light. The sea of fire howled, but the great sun indestructible body remained as unshaken as a rock. Not only did it not melt within the fire, but its golden glow intensified, making it appear as a towering golden statue in the distance. Liu Qing watched this scene, his eyes narrowing. The fire in this crimson sea was his life flame, a powerful force. Even a 6th grade supreme would be slowly melted by it after summoning their Dharmakaya. Yet here, Mu Chen's Dharmakaya stood unmoving, even growing more refined under the intense heat. This kid's Dharmakaya, what kind of power does it possess to be so domineering? Liu Qing's brows furrowed, and with a cold snort, he stopped hesitating. He quickly formed an unusual seal with his hand. Buzz! As his seal took shape, the fiery sea of fire around the great sun indestructible body suddenly began to condense, forming countless fiery feathered swords. These flaming feathers glowed like blazing swords, their surfaces covered with intricate flame patterns that emitted waves of intense heat. As these fiery feathered swords formed, Mu Chen's eyes slightly narrowed. From the feathers, he sensed faint but dangerous fluctuations of power. Liu Qing watched from a distance, a seemingly indifferent smile on his face. With a snap of his fingers, he launched his deadly move. Buzz! Buzz! The sound of the swords vibrating filled the air, and in an instant, the countless fiery feathered swords floating in the sea of fire disappeared in a strange, sudden motion. Mu Chen's pupils involuntarily contracted as he witnessed the scene before him. When the fire feather longswords disappeared, he hadn't noticed the slightest fluctuation, as if they had vanished into thin air. That sensation was as though the swords had truly disappeared out of nowhere. No, it's not disappearance. They've fused into the sea of fire. However, Mu Chen quickly discerned the mystery behind it. Just then, the golden light surrounding his great sun indestructible body dimmed for an instant. In that moment, dozens of streaks of fire suddenly appeared around him. Though the fire feather longswords were intensely heated, their cold, sharp edges sent a tingling sensation through Mu Chen's skin. Whoosh! As these fire feather longswords appeared, there was no hesitation. They shot toward Mu Chen's vital points with lightning speed. Even Mu Chen found himself unable to react in time. The swords were as sharp as any weapon could be. It was clear that Liu Qing had put all his effort into this attack. If they hit, even Mu Chen's powerful physique would inevitably suffer several bloodied wounds. The sword lights reflected in Mu Chen's eyes. In the blink of an eye, the sword edges were about to strike his clothes. But just then, Mu Chen's eyes sharpened. The golden light above his head erupted, transforming into golden shields with the speed of lightning, rapidly forming around Mu Chen's body. Boom, boom. The sword lights clashed with the golden shields, producing a sharp sound. Both the swords and shields dissolved into light spots, dissipating amidst the turbulent spiritual energy. Quick reaction. Liu Qing chuckled in surprise upon seeing his trick fail, but he immediately flicked his finger again. How about this time? As soon as his voice fell, Mu Chen felt a chill in his heart. He saw that this time, hundreds or even thousands of fire feather longswords had appeared around him, forming what looked like a sword formation, trapping him inside. At this moment, Mu Chen understood. Liu Qing's sea of fire wasn't meant to burn him. It was simply the medium for his ghostly attack. The fire feather longswords could melt into the sea of fire and then reappear anywhere within it. Even with the protection of his great sun's indestructible body, Mu Chen couldn't defend against these unpredictable swords. Unless he could extinguish the sea of fire, this relentless assault would continue until it turned him into a porcupine. This strategy was enough to trap any sixth grade supreme, leaving them no escape. Liu Qing was indeed formidable, not to be underestimated. However, Mu Chen had only appeared somewhat disheveled earlier because he had been caught off guard. If Liu Qing thought the same trick would work a second time, he was greatly underestimating Mu Chen. So, this time, as the thousands of fire feather longswords shot toward him like bolts of lightning, Mu Chen's gaze, as sharp as a blade, bypassed them completely and locked onto Liu Qing's position. To catch the thief, catch the king first. As long as Liu Qing was defeated, the sea of fire would lose all its power. A breath of white mist slowly escaped Mu Chen's mouth, and his hands quickly formed complex and profound seals. Boom, boom. As Mu Chen's hands shifted the seals, the countless fire feather longswords had already shot toward him. Gold shields, densely packed, appeared around him. The two forces clashed violently. Sword energy swept across Mu Chen's body, leaving behind bloodstains. Yet Mu Chen's expression remained indifferent, paying no heed to the diminishing golden shields. The speed of his hand seals only grew faster. In the next instant, his hands abruptly froze, leaving only afterimages. In the distance, Liu Qing suddenly felt a sense of unease as he saw Mu Chen's frozen hand seals. Before he could reflect further, he saw the space above Mu Chen ripple. In that rippling space, a massive, eerie flower slowly began to bloom. The flower was dark purple, and each of its petals was etched with ancient, mysterious patterns, resembling the heavenly and earthly patterns, unfathomable and cryptic. As the demonic flower bloomed, the spiritual energy in the world was immediately drawn in, even causing the sea of fire below to howl, transforming into torrents of flames that were sucked into the flower. The demonic flower became even more vibrant. Mu Chen looked up, exhaling a long breath. His finger pointed toward Liu Qing in the distance, whose face was extremely solemn that a faint smile tugged at the corner of Mu Chen's lips as his finger pointed toward the air. To come without returning the favor is impolite. Brother Liu, please take this move from me. As his voice fell, the center of the demonic flower stirred, and dark purple divine light surged. The flower's core locked onto Liu Qing from afar. In the next moment, with the sound echoing in Mu Chen's mind, a terrifying shockwave erupted, as if to annihilate the world. Great perfection, divine art. Mandala. Heaven-crushing light.